Moreover, the Venetian pentagram can be found superimposed upon the disk of Shamash, figure 12. The Sun and Venus in Mesoamerica. Worship of the ancient sun god in the planet Venus is as conspicuous in the New World as it is in the Old. Each of the so-called solar images can be found in prehistoric petroglyphs, as can the eight-pointed star and pentagram. In most cases, of course, New World petroglyphs occur in contexts otherwise devoid of writing, and thus it is difficult to be certain which celestial body is the subject of the glyph. Such is not the case in Mesoamerica, however, which reached a high stage of civilization under the Olmec and Maya. In addition to developing a sophisticated system of writing, the Maya were also skilled astronomers capable of calculating the period of Venus to within a fraction of its true value. Early symbols and petrographs of Mesoamerica consequently provide an invaluable key to unlocking the secrets of celestial imagery in prehistoric rock art. A prominent characteristic of Mesoamerican astronomy, indeed of Mesoamerican culture in general, was an obsession with the planet Venus. Like their counterparts in ancient Babylon, Mesoamerican skywatchers chronicled the movements of Venus with amazing diligence and accuracy, viewing it as an agent of great omen and danger. Of the Mexican preoccupation with Venus, a Spanish monk was led to report, so accurately did they keep the record of the days when it appeared and disappeared, that they never made a mistake. It would be difficult to cite an aspect of Mesoamerican culture devoid of the planet's influence. Temples were constructed and aligned with the purpose of gaining the optimum view of the planet. Various rituals, including human sacrifices and the practices of war, were timed to correspond to important aspects of the planet's orbit. Even the calendar was designed to take into account the planet's movements. Anywhere the sacred iconography associated with Venus abounds. The omnipresent influence of Venus upon Mesoamerican culture invites comparison with Old World cultures, particularly that of Babylon, and as we have documented elsewhere, the two cultures share much in common with respect to sacred traditions and iconography surrounding the planet Venus. Among the Maya and Aztecs, for example, Venus was represented as a star. This was in keeping with its name, Great Star, a common epithet of the planet amongst various peoples in Mesoamerica. Figure 13a depicts an Aztec symbol for Venus. This figure bears comparison with the four-pointed star which adorns the disk of Shamash. In figure 6, the resemblance is striking, down to and including the central point within the fourfold star. It is even possible that the volutes which distinguish the Aztec glyph correspond with the wavy lines which emanate from behind the star in the Babylonian symbol. The resemblance between the Aztec symbol and the Mesopotamian, needless to say, supports the conclusion that the four-pointed star originated in the objective appearance of the planet Venus. The same basic image is apparent in figure 13b, a version of the Lamet glyph, an acknowledged Maya glyph for Venus. Here the star is set against a circular disk, not unlike that associated with Shamash, as figure 13b and figure 13c, and then there was figure 6. It is equally common, however, to find Venus depicted as a five-pointed star, see figure 13c. Here, too, the Mesoamerican symbol finds a close counterpart in the Babylonian cult of Ishtar, Venus, figure 12. Figure 12, right there.
Quincunx.
The Quincunx. As was the case in the ancient Near East, pictographs featured prominently in Mesoamerican systems of writing. Included among the earliest petroglyphs is one believed to be associated with the planet Venus. See figure 14. Commonly known as Quincunx from the appearance of 4 circles about a central orb. It has been said the quincunx is the most frequently occurring sign in the Mesoamerican symbolic language. And like the star in Mesopotamian iconography, the quincunx appears ubiquitously amongst the sacred iconography surrounding the planet Venus. Given the Maya's renowned obsession with heavenly phenomena, it is not surprising that other celestial objects also came to be represented on their sacred stelae and imposing stone monuments. The sun, for example, was commonly signified by a glyph known as the kin. See figure 15. Of the kin glyph, Thomson opined that it was probably derived from some type of 4-petaled flower. It is not uncommon, however, to find the quincunx sign superimposed upon the kin sign. See figure 16. Of the meaning of this surprising superimposition of glyphs, Thomson offers nary a clue, only the following observation. The quincunx is frequently set on the regular 4-petaled kin glyph, apparently without altering its value in any way. The reader will recognize at once, of course, that this is the very same situation we encountered in ancient symbols from the Old World. Again we ask, what could possibly be the significance of this bizarre convergence of iconography, whereby a sign of Venus is placed upon the sign of the sun? Archaeoastronomers, confronted with this evidence from ancient hieroglyphs, might well be tempted to suggest that early scribes were trying to illustrate some important celestial event, such as the inferior conjunction of Venus and the sun. The latter is an event recurring every 584 days or so, in which Venus passes directly between the Earth and the sun. Unfortunate for the hypothetical thesis, however, is the fact that Venus is invisible during inferior conjunction, and thus this would appear to be a most unlikely explanation of the glyphs in question. Another possibility, of course, is to assume that modern scholars have erred in their identification of the glyphs for the sun and Venus. This, too, is highly unlikely, at least with regard to the sign for Venus. What then can be the explanation for the glyphs in question? The position taken in this essay accepts the ancient signs at face value, as faithful, albeit somewhat rudimentary attempts to depict a celestial phenomenon in which Venus appeared to be superimposed against the backdrop of a much larger sun-like orb. Those readers familiar with previous essays of Talbot and myself will recognize here a familiar theme. Summary. In the present essay, we have documented that glaring anomalies distinguish the earliest iconography associated with the various celestial bodies. Prehistoric petroglyphs from around the world consistently portray the ancient sun god in a fashion that bears little resemblance to the appearance of the current solar orb. Among the most common petroglyphs are those which show the solar disk equipped with a central dot, an 8-spoked body, a rosette, and a pillar-like appendage. The fact that the very same images appear amongst the earliest pictographs in Sumeria, Egypt, and Mesoamerica not only confirms the stubborn longevity of these sacred images, it offers some justification for the view that a continuity of beliefs, e.g. astral worship, likewise underlies the common images, thereby offering hope of discovering the original significance of the prehistoric petroglyphs upon analysis of their historical counterparts. In Mesopotamia, as we have seen, the most ancient symbol of Shamash, depicted as a star upon a circular disk, the star, however, originally signified the planet Venus, not only in Mesopotamia but also in Mesoamerica and Egypt. In light of the fact that the Babylonians and Maya are renowned for their astronomical prowess, particularly as it applied to the observation of Venus. We would venture forth the opinion that the stellar iconography surrounding this planet was representative in nature, and thus reflected the objective appearance of Venus in prehistoric times. How then are we to explain the presence of the Venus star upon the disk of the Sun? At the very least, this juxtaposition of images suggests a hitherto unnoticed relationship between the planet Venus and the Sun, difficult to explain given the current relationship which pertains between these two bodies. More probably, these images allude to a lost solar system, one in which the planet Venus appeared to be superimposed upon a sun-like orb, the latter to be distinguished from the current solar orb. Support for this conclusion can be obtained upon further analysis of the prehistoric sun images. Certainly, there is a remarkable resemblance between the Venusian star in Figure 8a and the eight-spoked body adorning the sun disk. In Figure 4, indeed, it is the opinion of this author that the eight-spoked body in Figure 4 does in fact represent the planet Venus, and thus marks a prehistoric analog of the eight-pointed star in which adorns the symbol of Shamash in Figure 7. Nor is it difficult to recognize a certain affinity between the rosette in Figure 9 and the flower-like object adorning the solar disk in Figure 3. That the rosette was one of the oldest symbols of Inanna Venus is commonly acknowledged, as its intimate relationship to the eight-pointed star. As we have seen, the eight-pointed star is frequently depicted as little more than 8 arms or spokes, emanating from a central hub, Figure 10, and some early examples of the star, such as that from Elam depicted in Figure 8b, render the resemblance to the Venusian rosette readily apparent. Indeed, the resemblance extends to the finest details of the respective images. Witness the dark dot located within the innermost core of the star, found not only in Figures 3 and 8b, but also within various examples of Figure 2 and 13. Having discussed the images represented by Figures 3 and 4, it remains to discuss Figure 2, the most common petroglyph of the sun, and one of the most prominent images in all of ancient art. Figure 5 will be dealt with at length in a subsequent essay. If we are to be consistent, the smaller orb is to be identified with the planet Venus. That the same body may at one time be represented as a star and elsewhere as an eye-like orb upon the face of the sun god need not be a contradiction. In ancient times, perhaps, the planet went through cyclical phases, not unlike our current moon, which alternately presents the appearance of a crescent and a circular disk. More probably, the different images associated with the planet Venus represent different stages in the evolutionary history of the planet, particularly as it related to the planet's interaction with the ancient sun god and other bodies in the solar system. It can be shown, in fact, that the planet Venus underwent various metamorphoses in appearance during its long-term association with the ancient sun god. During the course of the past decade, Talbot and myself have discussed several of the more clearly delineated phases in the history of Venus. Among the most prominent, as we have documented in great detail, is the phase in which Venus was identified with the eye of the sun god. Thus it is that Venus is identified with an eye, or with the eye of the ancient sun god, throughout the ancient world. In ancient Egypt, to take the most familiar example of this motive, the eye of Ra, one of the most sacred objects in all of Egyptian religion, is identified with Venus, and the glyph for Ra, it may be remembered, is our Figure 2. Conclusion. Together with the polychrome paintings of bison and mammoths on the cave walls at Altamira, ancient images of the sun and planets, Venus provide compelling evidence of lost worlds. The hypothesis that Venus moved upon a radically different orbit in very recent times during the Neolithic age, perhaps, will no doubt be met with the same skepticism as which greeted the discovery of the Paleolithic cave paintings in the past century. Be that as it may, the testimony of ancient rock art is not to be explained away. Indeed, it is our opinion that the evolutionary history of the solar system can be reconstructed in great detail upon analysis of ancient iconography and mythology, like the ancient oracle at Delphi. The mysterious images engraved in stone call out to us with news of the ancient gods. But given the cynical nature of the modern world, who among us will listen? F. Cochrane.
Carl Sagan, An Analysis of Worlds in Collision. And D. Goldsmith. Scientists confront Velikovsky, New York, 1979. That's silly. That's just a way for them to make themselves feel better. 2. Velikovsky, Worlds in Collision, 1950. See a discussion with A. Wilcox, The Rock Art of Africa, Kent, 1984. Close parallels can be found in East Tawahig, The Megalithic Art of Western Europe, Oxford, 1981. On the age of these petroglyphs, Anati writes, the most ancient valley carvings dealing with sun worship belong to the end of the Stone Age, to the second half of the 3rd millennium BC. At that period, the sun is drawn as an isolated disk. Seldom it is accompanied by a person with hands upraised in an attitude of prayer. Yeah, he's got 74 references here, so it's quite a lot. I'll read a couple of them. The Origin of Velikovsky's Comet, Kronos, Fall 1984. On the Nature of Cometary Symbolism, Kronos, Fall 1985. When Venus Was a Comet, 1987, Dave Talbot. Mother Goddess and Warrior Hero, Eon, 1988. The Mythical History of the Comet Venus, Eon, 1991, F. Cochrane. On Comets and Kings, Eon, 1989, The Birth of Athena. You can get that information right from here. Significantly, Venus was also compared to a flower in the New World. Thus, a Maya name for the planet was Lolzazcan.
Lolzazcan.
LOL, Zazcan. The luminous big flower of the sky. See W. Lamb's star lore in the Yucatec Maya dictionaries. Archaeoastronomy in Pre-Columbian America. 70. That the dark dot usually depicts the planet Mars will be demonstrated in a subsequent essay. For the logic behind this statement, see Dave Talbot, Mother Goddess, and Warrior Hero, Eon, 1988. The Death of Hercules, Eon, 1991. I would like to read that. That sounds interesting. So I'm taking it Hercules must be Mars. Jeremias and Widener both held that phases of Venus must have been visible in order to account for references to the horns of Venus in ancient Babylonian astronomical texts. When Venus Was a Comet, Kronos, Winter 1987. In Australia, for example, Venus was known as Mimanguna. Big Eye. Polynesian islanders referred to Venus as
Tamatanui,
Great Eye. The Maya likewise compared Venus to an eye, naming the planet Nahikik, Great Eye. See Dave Talbot, The Mythical History of the Comet Venus, Eon, 1991. I'm going to try to find some of these. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Talbot and Cochrane. When Was Venus a Comet? Kronos, Winter 1987. Mythology in Ancient Egypt. Mythologies of the Ancient World. New York, 1961.
An explosion of human imagination occurred an outpouring of mythology and symbolism that defined cultures for thousands of years, long after the celestial provocation itself was forgotten. In these early historical times, there are no records of the present planets, no diaries recording planetary motions or periods. Planets as we know them today did not exist. These were the gods, awe-inspiring, and at times capricious and terrifying. Early star worshippers speak of a great light of heaven, motionless in the sky, the Egyptian Atum or Atum Ra, the Sumerian An, the Babylonian Anu. And enigmatically, early astronomers knew the overarching figure as the planet Saturn, whose story will be a centerpiece of our third episode. In the beginning, the gathered powers were not seen as separate gods, but as the primeval unity of heaven, the perfect conjunction, or great conjunction of the Golden Age. A massive sphere hung in the sky, and in its center stood a radiant star surrounded by explosive streamers. Cultures the world over came to see this star in feminine terms as the mother goddess, the planet Venus. Remembered as the great star, the mother of all stars. This was the central eye, heart, and soul of the primeval sun, his animating life, power, and glory, and much more. The world. This was the terrible goddess, raging in the sky with wildly disordered hair, or multiple flailing arms, a celestial spectacle radiating a paralyzing light. When instability and displacement occurred, the streamers discharging from Venus grew chaotic, giving the planet a frightful countenance. The angry goddess was a comet, the mythic prototype of comets. Immanuel Velikovsky's great comet, the planet Venus. Seen in front of this central star was a smaller, darker, reddish sphere. This was the mythic warrior, the masculine heart of the heart, the child in the womb, the child on the lap, the pupil of the eye, the axle of the cosmic wheel, the most active figure of world mythology. Sky worshippers everywhere knew the identity of this warrior, the victor over dragons and chaos monsters. This global identity of Mars as the greatest of warriors shouts to us an unrecognized history. On the great sphere of heaven, a bright crescent appeared, with the orb or star of Venus between its horns. Things never seen in our sky were once revered around the world. The configuration evolved through numerous phases. The number of streamers changed repeatedly, as did their observed form. Every change in relative position produced dramatic change. The Australian physicist Wallace Thornhill flew to Portland for a 30-day visit. He convinced me that the forms I'd reconstructed were electrical. They were plasma discharge streamers stretching. Form will change with the intensity of the discharge. The whirling forms I'd reconstructed in the common symmetry, which I'd often laughed about, did indeed have a physical explanation.
The god responsible for the deluge is made clear by several authors already cited. That Saturn, the planet, was deemed responsible for the flood. It is equally plain, especially Velikovsky, 1978 and 1979. Velikovsky appears to have been the first to claim that Saturn became a nova, an idea that he found buried in Jewish rabbinical commentaries on the deluge. That will do it for this show. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, comment. Until next time, take care. And I'll see you on down the road. 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 And